Hello everyone and welcome back to the Spanish Sling, a podcast where we try to bridge the gap between the Spanish and Singaporean companies and encourage economic relations between them. Today we're going to focus in one of the sectors that makes Spain stand out, food and beverage. This is why we welcome today to the Spanish Sling José Alonso, company owner at AC Concepts. In this first part of the interview we're going to focus, José, on the food and beverage sector in Singapore. So I'm sure the Singaporeans know, but maybe Spain is not so familiar with that concept. So is Singapore a gastronomical center?
Okay, first of all, thank you so much.
No, thank you for coming.
Give me the opportunity to be here. Yeah, I think it's living in Singapore for already 12 years. I can say that the huge improvement of the F&B life in Singapore. No, I can remember when we just arrived here. Restaurants is a trend in the country, but after especially Marina Bay Sands open in the casino, we follow a lot of celebrity chefs and chefs to come here to the opening, and we decided to start to try ourselves in the country. And from there we'll see how the food interest for locals they start to increase, and also how expats or international chefs they start to look at Singapore as a food destination. I think in the last 12 years I can say that the number of restaurants that they are open are more and more, and the level of cuisine that is increasing more and more. From there I think as slowly, I think Michelin come to Singapore, 50 Best start to be also to put Singapore in the map, and now I think Singapore become one of the food destinations in the world in terms of any type of rights of food, because I think in just you come just for a week to Singapore, you can try. You have a very unique experience trying for the street food, the hawker center that is very popular here, where all the locals have the day-to-day lunch and dinner. To the top, some of them in the 50 best restaurants, Michelin star, that you can try, were French, Japanese, French, wherever you decide. You ask me, I think Singapore in the next 10 years, I think we become even more stronger as a food destination.
Wow. So watch out for Singapore as a food destination, as I said, just remarked, and just strive from the local street food to the top cuisine that the country offers. So we have talked about I've seen different international cuisines. So with such an international country, such as Singapore, that we see experts and different communities, ethnic communities, is there a particular food that stands out, and is Singapore or the Singaporean community open to trying different types of food?
Okay, I think when we talk about the foreigner food, we need to understand that Singapore as a principle, they don't have his own food. The only, I think we can say, is the Peranakan food.
Yeah.
And in the end, the Peranakan food is influenced by Chinese, Indians, Malays, Indonesians. Indian is a combination of all of them. No? You can see when you try the food that they use ingredients everywhere. No? But when we talk about international food, for sure, 100%, number one is the Japanese. Yes, Singaporeans, Indian also, I think when you come from Spain, the knowledge that we have about Japanese cuisine is mainly sushi and ramens, I think now, in the last 5 years. But you can see that it's yakitori, it's teppanyaki, it's yakuniku. It's, and all of them, they has different type of techniques and different type of raw material in order to execute the food. No? Also, I think Japan as a gastronomic is always in terms of quality. It's always the top one in the world. No? Whatever is food, technology, or anything, I think wherever come from them is always trust. And I think the number one can be Japanese food. Also, it's a very common travel to visit Japan, often from Singapore to any part of the country in Japan. And when we come to the Spanish food, I think it's true that in the last 10 years, when we moved here, it's true that there's not many Spanish restaurants. But in the last 7-8 years, the Spanish food became more and more popular. I think when we read the statistics about Spain becoming the third country in the world as a tourist destination, some of them they are Singaporeans already.
That's great.
They travel quite often to Spain, and I think it's when they go there and they try the food, they live the experience. When they back to the country, they miss the food. No? They miss the Iberico ham, they miss the cheese, our seafood, our paellas, and they start to look for that food in Singapore. And when we talk about the experience about how we eat the Spanish cuisine, like it's tapas, I think the raw material we use is a lot of seafood, is a lot of pork. Start to have some similitudes to local food, no? Or Chinese food. No? where they like to share everything in the middle. They like to eat a lot of pork. They like to eat a lot of seafood, a lot of stews. In the end, from then, I think that is we are lucky that I think the way we eat and how we eat and what we eat, they match with the local.
Yeah, they're really similar.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, I definitely miss Spanish food. So I encourage all the Singaporeans to just visit Spain and taste our amazing food culture as well. And so we have talked about the different players, the different cuisines that there are. Now, what are the major trends do you consider, Jose, in this sector?
Okay, I think for sure now is bake.
Yeah.
I think it's, you can see in Singapore in the last 2 years also. I can say that many small bakers they start to make the sourdough, start to make their own croissants, coffee roasters. It's also a big trend now in Singapore. I think if I need to point something, I maybe talk about the coffee places and bakeries. I think it's every small corner that you can find a new place that you can have a nice coffee or a special roaster. I point about the big coffee place and bakes.
Well, for me it's a paradise because I'm such a sweet tooth that I enjoy a lot of the bakes and the croissant that they offer. And now you have mentioned Spanish cuisine and Spanish food, and I want to get to that topic again. How can Spanish cuisine and Spanish food in this saturated market that you have talked about, different gastronomies trying to get their place in the Singaporean market, how can you make Spanish food and beverages stand out?
Okay, I think it's the same. I think it's a very common thing that I always share with many of my friends. It's very weird that you listen to someone that they visit Spain and he back from Spain and he said, "Well, I don't like your country." Most, I can say 95% of the time, everyone say, "No, your country is amazing. It's very warm. The food is amazing. It's affordable. To travel inside the country is nice." And I think in the end, it's just a personality of how we are. And I think when we bring that to the F&B, I think we are very homey business. We make people to feel at home, and we make people to feel comfortable when they try the experience. Because in the end, it's when you cross the door of any restaurant, you are trying to look for something. And there is when they start our part. From there is food that is supposed to be as good as you can, as a restaurant business. And after it's about how you do the training, how you make these people to feel in your restaurant. Of course, always any sector I think is saturated already. It's like but not because that you stop to try. And I think it's, as soon as you have a good product, it's always space to continue grow the business.
Perfect. So I think with the quality of a product and the similarities, as you mentioned, of the culture as well, I think Spain can really stand out among.
You think about other countries like French, Italians, it's always the easy sample. You can see is how many Italian restaurants we have in the city, how many Spanish restaurants. I think if you take by percentage, we are maybe less than 10%. In the end, we have another 90% to grow the business. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. So go for it. And finally, Jose, just to conclude this first part of the interview, how do you envision the future of the food and beverage sector in Singapore?
That's how we say before. I think it's Singapore is continue to grow. I think it's after the pandemic. I think the country became even stronger. I think it's how the government they handle or how it support us, because it's true that in the 2 years many countries they suffer, but we need to say that this country really helped us, the F&B, to at least to survive. And after that, I think now it's become even more as F1, for example, now is coming back. Food events is coming back. In the end, we can say that Singapore is again is catching the attention for all around the world, that Singapore is back again. And F&B is as a part of this lifestyle that when you bring for business, for anything, you can see that now everything is open, and I think honestly I trust that things are going to well in the next years.
Totally. Well, thank you so much, Jose, for your advice and your information, and watch out for Singapore as a food destination. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.